Okay, it's 1 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. I'd like to move on to item 1.2 of our agenda, which is roll call, and I'll ask our clerk, Trustee Clark, to please call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Lamstead, are you present?
Yes, I am.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
Councillor Braybrook?
Present.
Councillor Cadigan?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CIO Treasurer.
Present.
Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works.
Present.
Adele Arbor, Planner.
Present.
Bianca Dragicevic, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Matt Winches, Supervisor of Waste, Public Works Coordinator.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services Clerk, is present.
Okay, thank you very much. We move on to item 1.3 of our agenda, which is land acknowledgement and moment of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge that Trent Lakes and Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nation, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Thank you. We can move on now to item 2 of our agenda, which is approval of the agenda as circulated. I would entertain a motion for same. Councillor Franzen for a mover. Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any conversation about the agenda? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now we can move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is disclosure of pecuniary interest. If any member of council has a pecuniary interest on an item on the agenda, please disclose it now or any time during the meeting prior to discussing anything on the item you have a pecuniary interest in. I'm seeing no hands. We can move on to item 4 of the agenda, which is adoption of minutes. Item 4.1 is the regular council meeting of June 17th, and item 4.2 is the special council meeting of June the 2nd. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Mr. Cadigan, go ahead.
Motion to approve both.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? The Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any conversation about the minutes? I'm seeing none. I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 5 of our agenda, which is committees and boards. Item 5.1 is the Environmental Advisory Committee, June 5th, 2025 meeting and the July 3rd, 2025 meeting. Item 5.2 is the Library Board. Item 5.3 is a Committee of Adjustment. Anyone prepared to make a motion or would like to discuss anything about one of those items? Councilor Braber, go ahead.
Just make a motion to receive all 3.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councilor Franzen for a seconder. Any conversation about the 3 items on the agenda? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Item 5.4 is the liaison reports for council boards and committees. Does anyone have anything to report? I'm seeing none. We can move on now to item 6 of the agenda, which is statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act. I would entertain a motion to suspend our regular council meeting and go into an open meeting. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover. Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We can move on now to item 6.1 of our agenda, which is zoning bylaw amendment file 2507. And I do believe Chris Jones is online to speak for, oh yes, we need to do a preamble first before we start our meeting. I'm not sure who would like to do the preamble. Adele Arbor, our planner, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And through Mayor Lamstead, today's public meeting is under section 17 and 34 of the Planning Act to consider an amendment to the municipality's official plan and comprehensive zoning bylaw B 2014-070. Applications 25-07, 25-08, and 25-09 are strictly amendments to the zoning bylaw, whereas application number 25-10 applies to an amendment to both the official plan and zoning bylaw. A notice of public meeting for today's applications containing the prescribed information was circulated to all landowners within a 120-meter radius of the subject lands at least 20 days prior to this meeting, and a sign was posted on the subject land in accordance with the Planning Act. The notice was also mailed to all prescribed agencies, public bodies, and persons in accordance with the regulations. Anyone wanting to be notified of any decision from today's public meeting must either inform myself or the clerk, and the notice of passing will be mailed to them, setting out the method and manner in which appeals may be made to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person does not send in a written comment prior to the passing of a bylaw or make an oral submission at the public meeting, that person may not be entitled to appeal the decision.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele Harper. Now we can move on to item 6.1 of the agenda, which is zoning bylaw amendment file 2507. And I believe Chris Jones is online to speak to this item.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Council. You can hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. First file today is file 2507. Applicant is Kondraki, parcel lot 28, concession 3. And these folks are located at 88 Fire Route 242 on Gold Lake. The lot has an area of just over 8,000 square meters or over 90,000 square feet with a peninsula-like shoreline frontage, about 73 meters. So if you have my report of July 4th, at figure 2, you see the applicant's existing cottage located in the water yard. And that existing cottage is about 100 square meters or just over 1,000 square feet, together with a detached garage. The intention is to construct a replacement dwelling, generally in the location of that existing structure, of the existing dwelling. And the proposed dwelling would have a floor area of about 200 square meters with a partial second story, so 265 square meters in total. And at figure 3 of my report, you can see the rendering or the site plan of the proposed dwelling. Existing detached garage stays as is, and then a proposed septic system is also illustrated on that site plan. This is a big lot, but it's there's a couple of constraints. It's the location of the road, and the location of the road in part is probably predicated on a very large rock escarpment, which is located on the other side of the road. So even though the lot itself is quite large, the sort of the viable or practical building location is between the shoreline and the private road. Notwithstanding that, that area is still pretty substantial. And again, given the peninsula-like nature of the shoreline, there's actually, in parts, the dwelling is actually compliant with the 30-meter setback. It's just in the location of the existing structure where the proposed replacement dwelling is to be constructed. So the nature relief relates to the shoreline setback for the dwelling, 30 to 9 meters, but that varies. Relief for the proposed septic system, as well as the setback from the private right-of-way from 12 meters to 10.9 meters. The applicant has submitted an archaeology assessment as well as a natural heritage evaluation. At figure 4 of my report, I've included an illustration of the proposed shoreline remediation or restoration plan, which the applicant's natural heritage consultant has provided. My report continues with consideration of the PPS, the municipality's official plan. On balance, I'm supportive of the proposed replacement dwelling, and the recommendations of the restoration plan have been incorporated into a site plan agreement, which I understand has been executed by the applicant, and the requisite security for the restoration has been provided. That's my summary. Mr. Mayor and Council, if there's any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we can proceed with the public meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Does any members of council have any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Was anybody in the gallery virtually or physically that would like to speak for or against this?
I have Laura Stone online. I'll unmute you now.
Hello, Laura.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mayor Lambshead. I am representing the applicants for this project. And first and foremost, I would like to say thank you very much to staff for the supportive report. I'm just here to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. Does anyone on council have any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Does anyone in the gallery have any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. I think this is the easiest application you ever had. I think Chris Jones's report identifies the larger rock outcropping and the peninsula formation of the lot. So I think that explains a lot. Okay, I think we are done. There's no questions or comments. We can move on to item 6. Thank you very much, Laura, for coming. We can move on to item 6.2 of the agenda, which is zoning bylaw amendment 2508. And Del Arbor, I think you would like to speak to this item, our planner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This zoning bylaw amendment application is for a piece of property in Granite Ridge Phase 2 plan of subdivision. And it's actually zoned currently as open space exception 9. And the applicant has requested that it be changed to a residential zone. When we were looking at the application, the GIS mapping identified a small area of the property exhibiting an unevaluated wetland, so an EIS needed to be prepared for this application. And the EIS report is in support of changing the zoning from the open space zone to a residential zone. You'll see in my report, the ask was actually for the residential Hamlet Residential Exception Zone 16, which you can see a number of the properties around the pond are zoned that particular zone category. However, when we were preparing the zoning bylaw amendment that's on the council agenda, we noticed that this property was compliant with the lot area of the Hamlet Residential Zone, and the 16 with this exception 16 recognized deficient lot area for the proposed lots around the pond. So we didn't want to put it in that category. So what we're proposing is that it goes to Hamlet Residential exception -18, and you'll see that on the bylaw. So planning staff are in support of the change of the zoning category from open space to a residential designation, residential zone category, as the proposal appears consistent with provincial policies. It meets the purpose and the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and the proposal is in keeping with the other residential lots surrounding the swim pond.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any comments or questions from council? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lambshead. Thanks, Adele. I was just curious about the background of this. I believe that when a subdivision is registered, often either there's cash paid to municipality or they designate one lot as open space for potentially future recreational use. What's the background of this open space? Was it in that category of donated land for future recreation, or is it something completely different?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I
Yeah.
wasn't here when the subdivision plan was originally developed, but my understanding is that there are some drainage channels, and for some reason, this was an open space zone, and we were requested at one point in time when the subdivision plan was draft approved, if we would accept it as parkland. So I have checked with our Parks and Recreation Director, and we didn't need any parkland in this area. However, I don't know really the origin of why it was an open space zone, other than it showed some unevaluated wetlands on the GIS mapping. And that could be the origin, but perhaps the property owner, Mr. Cheshire, would be able to provide some details to that. But that's my knowledge of why it was an open space zone.
Okay. Would you like more detail, Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
If if
I'd like to-
Mr. Chester's available to, or able to just
Yeah, no,
provide that, that'd be great.
In 2009, when we started this project, the township wanted another part, so we made it another part. And now it's 15 years later, they don't want any more liability, and I wasn't gonna carry the liability the rest of my life, so we made it into a lot. It's one of the biggest lots there, so it's better use of that. Pays a lot better to you guys than a part.
Great. Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for the details. Okay, any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Okay, thank you, Adele. We can move on to item 6.3 of our agenda. Is there any questions online, Mike?
I'm not seeing any hands
Okay.
raised.
Perfect. We can move on to item 6.3 of our agenda, which is zoning bylaw amendment 2509. And Chris Jones, I think you would, our external planner, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, this is application file number 2509, filed by 1447147 Ontario Inc. Part lot 9, concession 9, lots located at 14 William Street in the settlement of Buckhorn. This lot has frontage of 100 feet and a lot area of 1,900 square meters, or just over 20,000 square feet. The lot is it's a vacant lot that's located next to the medical center, just for reference. The proposal involves rezoning the property to allow construction of a triplex. And the triplex would be a single-story building with a ground floor area of about 4,300 square feet, with each dwelling unit having a floor area of just over 1,400 square feet, as well as an attached garage with a floor area of 238 square feet. And at figure 2 of my planning report, there is a site plan. That's actually a site plan and lot grading plan that the applicant has prepared. And what follows is figure 3, which is an elevation of the proposed triplex, and that would be with the access, the garage doors and access facing that I believe that would be south, or the opposite to the medical center. So in order to proceed, these lands are zoned hamlet residential, which permits singles and duplexes. The triplex is subject to a zoning bylaw amendment. It is contemplated or authorized by the official plan, subject to some development policies. Firstly, a detailed hydro-G study, a maximum density generally not exceeding 4 units per acre, inclusion of landscaping, designed to minimize impact on adjacent uses, and lastly, access to collector streets or a local street, which connects directly to a connector. Sorry, to a collector, that should be. Just back to the technical work that was provided in support. There was an EIS, or natural heritage report, done. And no issues there, with the exception of a butternut tree, which is an endangered species, but that tree was actually very close to the road allowance, so not really in the building envelope. And according to the author of the report, the tree was not in a retainable category in any event, due to some form of disease or abscess. There was a hydro-G assessment or pump test, and that report concluded that the well produced, there is an existing well on site that produced 6,000 liters of water, which was concluded to exceed required demand for a 3-unit residential building by over 60%. Applicant has provided a lot grading plan. That plan has been reviewed by the Director of Public Works, and who has made a few comments with respect to the need for an entrance permit and road occupancy permit. As far as PPS, I believe the nature of the proposal, being in a settlement area, is aligned with the PPS. I believe the proposal substantially addresses the official plan criteria for consideration of multiple residential uses in settlement areas. Again, the Hydro G, or the pump test, proved that the water supply was sufficient. The density does slightly exceed the 4 units per hectare, that policy guideline in the official plan, but in my view, at 3 units, that remains a minor development. And again, it has been supported by a Hydro G assessment or pump test. I believe the low profile of the building, together with landscape along the front lot line, will certainly contribute to the maintenance and character. Certainly is an improvement over a vacant lot, sort of growing up in scrub. And that as council is aware, location of these lands is approximately 200 meters to the county road. Sorry, I just jumped over the nature relief. So there is a few items that need to be addressed in addition to permitting the triplex. Minimum lot area, relief required there. Minimum lot frontage, 45.5 to 30 meters. Relief from the front yard setback, 12 meters to 10.7. Interior side yard setback, one side from 4.5 to 4.1. And maximum lot coverage, an increase of from 20% to 22.3. And that's, there is no site plan agreement. The Planning Act was amended to essentially not authorize site plan control for residential development of less than 10 units. The exception being shoreline areas or areas adjacent to water courses and flood lines and that type of thing. But again, lot creating plan, I believe checked out with the Director of Public Works, but that's not something that can be tied down or leveraged through a site plan agreement. Yeah, on balance, I'm supportive of the amendment, Mr. Mayor and Council, and there is a zoning bylaw on, as part of the agenda for Council's consideration. Any questions or comments, please let me know.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris Jones. Does any members of council have any comments or questions about this file? I'm seeing none. Is there anyone in the virtual or physical gallery that would like to speak to this item? I'm seeing none. Is there anyone online? No? Okay. Well, that's it. Oh, Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, one comment. It's exciting to see the municipality get its first triplex, and thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. Takes a vacant lot and turns it into 3 units. That's progress. Okay. Okay, that's it for that item. I don't see any more comments or questions. We can move on now to item 6.3 of our agenda, which is zoning bylaw amendment, file number 2509. And I believe, Chris Jones, you would like to speak to this. I think I just did that. My apologies. We'll move on to 6.4 of the agenda, which is zoning bylaw amendment 2510, an official plan amendment number 64. And Chris Jones, I think you would like to speak to this item.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Council. Now, does the clerk have my PowerPoint?
I do believe we do, yes.
It's loading.
We're trying to get there.
Okay.
I think technology was supposed to make it easier, Chris. I can see Bianca's hands are flying over there on the computer. Okay, there we go.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and Council, this is a public meeting under the Planning Act for an initiative that we've been working, Planning Department has been working with Council for some time. And that is an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to authorize additional residential units. So let's just, if we could just jump to the next slide. And the additional residential unit by definition is a self-contained residential dwelling unit located within or forming part of a dwelling or accessory structure, which is capable of functioning as an independent dwelling unit in a manner compliant with the Ontario Building Code. And we'll just go to the illustrations. These are slides I believe Council has seen before. I'm just sort of working from the same slide deck, but ARUs illustrated essentially can take many forms, whether it's as a detached accessory or sort of tiny home accessory to a principal dwelling, as a, again, accessory or structure dwelling that's forming part of or within the principal house itself, whether it's attached or attached above a garage or a basement apartment or what was an original attached garage that has been converted, or an upper floor apartment. Next slide. Of course, I can't do this. I've been doing these ARU amendments for several municipalities. I can't seem to get rid of this slide, but if you're a fan of 70s or 80s pop culture, then you don't know what an ARU is. You know where the Fawns lived, and that was above the garage of the Cunninghams, and that's really what we're talking about here is, again, accessory apartments as part of a accessory building or within the dwelling itself. Next slide. So the short history, at least according to this slide anyway, that the history might be a bit longer, but back in the mid-90s, there actually was legislation passed that unilaterally permitted apartments and houses, and it was guided by regulation. That legislation was fairly short-lived. It was there for a couple of years, and you still have in parts of the GTA subdivisions that were approved in that period that had as of right authorizations to construct accessory apartments within houses. Then there was a bit of a gap of time that sort of picked up in 2008, where the Planning Act began to again have sort of evolving language with respect to this issue. Bill 23 approved in 2022 was probably is really sort of the current guidance that we're working from, and my next slide deals with that. But we do have a new provincial planning statement, and accessory residential units have now found themselves a sort of common housing type or housing form, which is captured under the definition of housing options, which is referenced throughout the PPS with respect to affordability objectives or again, basic housing objectives. The next slide just deals with Bill 23, and which again was an amendment to the Planning Act. And what this amendment did was it established that on a quote parcel of urban residential land, the following shall not be prohibited by an official plan or zoning bylaw. So it was a bit of a misconception that the Planning Act sort of unilaterally authorized. That's not the case. It's still a case of these authorizations having to be implemented through official plan and zoning bylaws. However, the language is fairly direct in that if you update your official plan or update your zoning bylaw, that there is no ability to not allow these things. And I've always struggled with the way the Planning Act sort of explains or sets out these authorizations. So I've sort of used my own summary of what these permissions mean. But essentially what this particular amendment means is firstly that one residential unit on a parcel of urban residential land is permitted as an accessory building or within an accessory building. Next part of what this means is that a maximum of 3 residential units are permitted in a house. So in other words, you know, a triplex really is a permitted use. So that's the original dwelling plus 2. And that's so 3 is the maximum, but that's if there are no ARUs already independent of an accessory of the main dwelling. Lastly, that you cannot prohibit 2 residential units in a house if there is a residential unit in an accessory building. So what this is really saying in a nutshell is that all detached homes on parcels of urban residential land are authorized to have up to 3 units on them, whether it's 3 units in the house or 2 in the house and 1 independent of the house. Next slide. And so this is where the definition, and this was new as part of the Bill 23, the definition of a parcel of urban residential land, which is essentially a parcel that's in a settlement that's zoned for residential use and that is connected to sewage works and a municipal drinking water system. In other words, a municipal sanitary sewer system and a municipal drinking water system. And that is the definition of a parcel of urban residential land. Prior to Bill 23, we did not have this distinction. And so it did leave a lot of rural municipalities with some consternation as to how broad this permission was, particularly when it related to, again, rural lots on private services. And so if we go to the next slide, the implication or the significance of that definition is, firstly, the Trent Lakes does not have parcels of urban residential land, as we do not have a sanitary sewer system. We do have some of our development areas which are serviced by municipal water, and that would, in planning terms, that would be what we call a partial service settlement, but those would not be parcels of urban residential land by definition. And what that means is ultimately, as a rural municipality, you have some discretion on the regulation of ARUs. And as we have discussed and worked toward putting something in place with respect to this issue, the direction from council a couple of months ago was to draft policy and regulation to permit a maximum of 1 ARU per lot. That's either within a detached accessory building or within a primary dwelling. And so the amendments that we've been working on and that I'm going to summarize here shortly are sort of motivated or geared to this objective. Next slide. Now, we are in the midst of a county official plan, which will become the Trent Lakes official plan, as well as other municipalities. We just don't know when that approval would be. And in fact, it has been a very protracted process as the county has adopted this plan in a period where there's been quite a bit of change in terms of Planning Act changes and provincial policy changes. But in any event, the preparation of these amendments has been mindful of a couple of key policy directives in this draft official plan. Firstly, that ARUs would not be permitted on private roads or on lands accessed by water access only, and that ARUs would not be permitted on capacity reached lakes or within 300 meters of those lakes. Next slide. So the draft OPA, which again, we discussed with council a month ago or so, it sets out some policies on the issue that will permit a maximum of 1 ARU per lot, that will rely on the zoning bylaw to define and regulate ARUs. Specifies that ARUs are not permitted in partial service residential areas. And this is to allow full build out of those subdivisions on partial services and not to create a burden on the design capacity of those water systems. The policies do not permit ARUs on private roads, on highly sensitive lake trout lakes. As council is aware, we do have another category of lake trout lakes. Those are referred to in our official plan as moderately sensitive. And the way the policy is written is that ARUs may be permitted on those lakes, subject to assessment, planning approval, and shoreline restoration where necessary. And next slide is just a summary of the zone regulations. So the draft zoning amendment that's in the agenda would permit ARUs in the rural residential, hamlet residential, and shoreline residential zones. Again, the bylaw defines an ARU, establishes a minimum lot area, which is aligned with the minimum lot area for the respective zones, establishes a maximum total floor area, requires a shared well and common driveway, requires connection to a class 4 septic system. That could be a shared system or it could be an independent system. And also requires a minimum separation distance of, within the residential zones of 10 meters or within rural areas of 20 meters. And that's, the intent there is just to try to maintain, again, an accessory nature and sort of clustering of buildings as opposed to spreading them out. Now I had one last slide because I know there was some discussion. Could you just go to the next slide? Oh, no, okay, so there, sorry, second last slide. The bylaw also contains some prohibitions that ARUs are not permitted on lots serviced by a municipal water system, within lands within 300 meters of a lake trout lake, on lands that do not abut and have direct access to a municipal maintained road, in cases where the lot is already occupied by a guest cabin or an accessory building with plumbing, and ARUs are not permitted in the minimum water yard or below a regulated flood line. The last slide is again a consideration, and it sort of flows from discussion at the last council meeting I attended. That being, you know, whether we're prepared to go forward with, as of right, with ARUs in the SR zone. That is what the draft amendment provides. The alternative that I would propose and would support it with council's direction is to allow ARUs in the SRA in a manner that would require any proposal to establish, to allow them essentially subject to planning approval. And I guess the benefits there, it does allow site evaluation with the objectives of minimizing site alteration or removal of natural features. It would create an opportunity to work with an applicant on issues related to septic design, location, and shoreline maintenance or restoration. Thirdly, it would allow the municipality to assess and monitor the demand for an impact of ARUs in shoreline areas. So it would be a crawl before you walk approach if council again chose to proceed in this way. And that, Mr. Mayor and Council, is my summary of these amendments. And I'll turn it back to you for any questions or comments from the public.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris Jones, our external planner. Does anyone on council have any comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris. I have two questions. The first one is, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought in our discussion at the last meeting, we were excluding ARUs from not only the lake trout lakes that are at high capacity or at capacity, which is 11 lakes. I thought we were also excluding it from that category of lakes that were considered in the official plan and by MOE moderately sensitive or limited. And there are 3 lakes that are in that category: Gold, Ketchikoma, and I just lost the other one. So I thought we were treating those 2 categories the same and suggesting that there would not be ARUs in those areas. Did I misunderstand that the last time around?
So if we could I just jump back 2 or 3 slides to the official plan policies? Okay, there. So, okay, through the mayor to the deputy mayor. So the draft OPA has a policy in there that I've summarized at item 6. And that says that an ARU may be permitted on a moderately sensitive lake trout lake, subject to assessment, planning approval, and shoreline restoration. So it's not a prohibition, but it is identifying that on those lakes that they would be subject to planning approval.
And is that a change from our discussion earlier?
If I missed that, then I missed that, but I didn't. I knew there was some discussion or concern around the shoreline residential zone generally. But I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Just to finish that, it was my understanding that we would exclude those as well, and that included Ketchikoma, gold in Mississauga, some very large lakes in our municipality. So I think it's important we understand how we're treating those. The second question, I've had a few people come up to me and ask the question, what provision are we putting in here so that these additional residential units will not be built for the exclusive purpose of short-term rentals? Because that's not the intent of this. This is to provide additional housing for people on a more permanent basis, not for people to build a building that they can use for revenue generation and not to provide housing, which is contrary to the objective of all of this.
Yeah, so through Mayor Lambshead to the deputy mayor, yeah, neither the draft OPA or the ZBA certainly they speak to the motivation for these amendments to be alternative diversity in housing and hopefully affordability, address some affordability measures. But the issue of short-term accommodation or short-term rental is not identified as part of the amendments. And now, having said that, I mean, municipality has gone to, as many municipalities have gone to extensive effort to regulate short-term rentals. And depending what form this ultimately takes on council's approval, that if it's council's wish to preclude this housing type or this housing form from being utilized for short-term rental, then I believe you do have the bylaw in place right now that would essentially implement that intent. In other words, licenses wouldn't be available or registrations wouldn't be available where they would be proposed to utilize a short-term an ARU.
If I may, just a follow-up question, so I'm confused. If we're creating a new bylaw for ARUs, do we not have as council and a municipality the discretion to put in there some provision that these additional residential units shall not be used as, or not be built for the sole purpose of short-term rental, but rather to provide additional housing? Isn't that something we could do?
So through the mayor to the deputy mayor, if council would like that language in as part of either the OPA or ZBA or both, we could certainly do that. I guess the point I'm trying to make is the short-term rental bylaw and the sort of the registration and administration process that has been established has all been established, at least as I understand it, on the basis that these are permitted uses in your zoning bylaw, and because the zoning bylaw was not your comprehensive zoning bylaw was not amended or modified or updated in conjunction with the short-term rental bylaw. So I sort of look at it from a consistency perspective as well.
I'm still not understanding whether we could put that provision in this ARU bylaw or not.
I think you capture it with not issuing a permit, a registration. That's where you capture it.
There's nothing in our current registration process that would allow us to not issue it. So we've got this gap right now that would allow an ARU to be a short-term rental. And I guess what I'm looking for, if people agree, and we may not, that's up to council, but if we agree that we don't want ARUs to be built exclusively for the purpose of short-term rentals, then can we not put something into this new bylaw that states that? And or I guess we'd have to go back to our short-term rental bylaw and amend it, say we will not issue permit for a new ARU. Otherwise, it falls through the cracks.
Adele Arbor, our planner, would like to speak to that. Go ahead, Adele.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just building on what Chris has mentioned here, this public meeting and council's input is very important. And Chris doesn't feel, or myself, that the zoning bylaw would be the appropriate place for that prohibition that Deputy Mayor Armstrong is looking for. So our suggestion is to take this information back. We don't have a bylaw on the agenda today or the official plan amendment. and we will look to see where that is more appropriately positioned. But just from the conversation that's happened, I agree with Chris. It's probably more appropriate to amend our registration bylaw for short-term accommodation. So we've noted your comments and we'll put it in the proper place, and we may have to talk to legal as well. But certainly that's something that we could do, but we just don't know where we're going to place it at the current time.
And I defer to you to, if that's the intent and we agree with that, I defer to you and to recommend how best to deal with that. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's a more appropriate location to deal with that, because we know every ARU that's going to be built will have a permit on it, we'll know what it is, so that we'll know which ones are applying for short-term rental permits. And I think Councillor Franzen, you had a comment.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, basically to respond to the Deputy Mayor. So the main house can be, if we wouldn't approve the ARU to be used as a short-term rental, but the main house could be a short-term rental, excluding the 900 foot addition to the house as a secondary. I don't see how that makes any sense and how we would enforce it.
That's what we can look in our bylaw for. I think that's the appropriate location to deal with that. And I do agree. Councillor Braber, go ahead.
Get through your Mayor. Just so I'm clear, Chris, when we last had the conversation about this, we talked about the number of approximate number of residences that may participate in this ARU bylaw. Did we not come up, did you not mention that it was the 20% were approximately 20% were shoreline? So that would leave approximately 200 shoreline properties?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Braybrook. Yeah, I think it was really the lot area requirement when we did that analysis that established the threshold. And so if that analysis created about 1,000 parcels, I think it was about 200 or 250 that were in the shoreline, or that were in the SR. Again, the SR being the zone that's on that are on public roads.
Answer your question, Councillor Braber?
It does. And just a comment, I do have a concern as far as our 200 potential shoreline residential ARUs. I think we should have a mechanism in place to sort of restrict any sort of ARU development and perhaps provide an exemption to the rule. So long as those developments or proposed developments have the ability to go through the regular process to apply for an ARU. But I don't think we should be just giving it carte blanche. They should have to go through that extra step, given it is a shoreline residential, so long as we're not excluding them or precluding them from pursuing an ARU on a shoreline residential property.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, Mr. Mayor, through to the Councillor Braybrook, that option then on my last slide is something that you're supportive of.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it just with the added comment that I fear they, especially on the shorelines, that's just me. I think if people are coming in, they want to develop, and they know that they can just come in and develop and not have to jump through additional hoops to get an ARU addition. I fear that we'd be attracting more, not local people, but more companies coming in and just looking to make the money and utilizing the shoreline. So I think there should be a bit of a buffer or barrier to prevent that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that's where I think your planning part of that comes into effect, right? Has to have a planning application, you can go through it, have some certain criteria that might. Go ahead, Councillor Friend.
Through you, Mayor. like to make a comment. We're talking about adding approximately 900 square feet to, supposing it was a waterfront residence. But we approve all the time when somebody's tearing down 1,000 square foot cottage and putting up a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot cottage and adding 2 or 3 or 4 bedrooms. And we don't seem to say that's going to impact the lake in a negative way.
Well, that's the reason for your environmental impact study. That's professionals that look at that. Right?
But I don't know why the ARUs should be treated any different than an addition to a cottage for family use.
You're correct, and I believe that those additions and size of that thing usually goes through the Planning Act as well, so that there's almost always restrictions and ways to govern it and make sure that it's done appropriately. So the shoreline restoration plan, there's environmental impact studies, there's species at risk sometimes. There's lots of mechanisms to make sure that they aren't put on inappropriate lots. And in my view, that's only my interpretation. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I would just add to that,
Okay,
again, that you're right, that's why it's with such 50% expansion, it has to come forward.
Yeah.
Council as an exception. So there are safeguards in place, exactly as you said, to look at those impacts.
Okay, any other comments or questions from people in the gallery or people online? I think we're still in an open meeting.
I have Ben Fletcher has his hand raised. I'll unmute you, Ben, and you'll have to unmute yourself as well.
Hello, Ben. I feel like I'm talking to the air again. Hello, Ben, are you there?
Ben, you're still muted.
Are you there, Ben? I was gonna sing, is there anybody out there, but I don't think anyone would like that.
I want to hear it.
Fair, that's fair. Later.
Can you guys hear me?
There we go. Okay, Ben, there you're
Okay,
on.
perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I think I was on the webinar for too long. It may have, I don't know, glitched or something, but I rejoined and now you guys can hear me, so that's good.
Okay, perfect. Would you like to speak to this
Thank
item?
you.
Go ahead.
Just want to say I fully agree with supporting and bringing ARUs into Trent Lakes. I'm in my mid-20s and I know people in my demographic. Home ownership and affordability is definitely a strong topic. Many people my age are having difficulty with finding affordable housing solutions, and I think ARUs are a great way to combat that. Yeah, I mean, more people my age, I mean, they're having trouble moving out of parents' houses, et cetera, and I think ARUs are definitely a good solution to solve that issue. So yeah, I'm definitely fully in support of ARUs. I just wanted to also mention, in regards to not allowing them on private roads, I wanted to get more clarity on why that is. And I don't particularly see an initial major downside of having an ARU on a privately owned property that may be accessible by a private road. So I wanted to get more clarity on that, if possible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for your question. I'm not sure if any staff would like to answer that question.
Mr. Mayor, if we could just jump back to the slide where I referred to the county of Peterborough's official plan. Just go back 5 or 6 slides.
We're heading there.
County official plan policy. So, yeah, the issue with private roads is, again, something that we have been mindful of in the adopted official plan. And I paraphrase the policy in that first bullet that says additional residential units will not be permitted on private roads or on properties with water access only, where emergency access may be limited. So it's, you know, we know there are lots and lots of private roads out there, and there's lots and lots of development. It's, always for municipalities that have, municipalities as well as the upper tier that have certain responsibilities when it comes to emergency services and emergency accesses. To what extent do you allow development to sort of continue to evolve and proliferate? And so I think that's sort of the crux of why the private roads have been used as a basis for a prohibition of ARUs.
Did you hear that, Ben?
Yeah, no, that makes sense for sure. I mean, is there, so I'm assuming if someone did have a property on a private road, they would have to go through some amendment to be able to look past that. Is that a possibility?
I think that's where you would run into the minor variance idea again, or so go ahead, Adele.
Through you,
That's
Mr. Mayor, if it's prohibited, then you would require a zoning bylaw amendment, but planning department would not be in support of such a request, as our bylaw is prohibiting it, and emergency access is very important for individual property owner safety, and now you have actually 2 dwelling units on a property, and it's something that we wouldn't be supporting.
Did you hear that, Ben?
Right, okay.
Yeah,
No, thank you very much.
we have absolutely no control over the size and quality of a private road. So for emergency vehicles to get to a residence that now is another residential unit, it's difficult.
Right.
But
Well,
I
that
think,
makes sense.
yeah, the restriction for public roads and main roads makes sense to me as well. Thank you. Any other questions, Ben?
No, that's it. I mean, I agree with Councilman Franzen on his previous comment about shoreline properties, and I think they shouldn't be excluded. I mean, they're some of the highest taxpayers in the municipality, and I think people have heritage family cottages, and they maybe want to add more living space for family members as families expand. But that's it. I really appreciate the attention to this matter, guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Okay, is there anyone else online or in the gallery that would like to speak to this item? I see someone in the gallery. Please state your name for the record. Again, state your name.
I just wanted to start by asking, did council receive the letter from the Environmental Advisory Committee?
Yes, we did.
Are you going to speak to it?
Yeah, if you want to come up to the chair there, please, Ed, and,
I'm not going to read it.
well, you don't know, I think you're going to speak to it.
I wasn't planning that.
Okay. It's all good. Just a brief explanation or whatever you want to hear. We're here to say this is your opportunity. It's a public meeting.
Well, the Environmental Advisory Committee did follow up your last discussion of this matter. And the committee felt strongly that shoreline residential properties should not be automatically approved for additional residential units. And that they should be subject to minor variance process where you could look seriously at the environmental impacts of each proposal and decide whether or not to approve it. We also noted that in our municipality, we're quite different than the 6 southern municipalities that are much more urban oriented and agriculturally oriented. Here, with the natural environment being the dominant feature here on the Canadian Shield, it's worth taking a little extra time to make sure we're making the right decisions on property by property. So we also noted that both Haliburton and Muskoka, that have environments much more like Trent Lakes than like the 6 municipalities to the south of us, have opted to have the shoreline residential removed from the automatic approval for ARUs. The committee certainly recognized that there are cases where ARUs would make sense in shoreline residential situations. But we believe that it's a case-by-case situation in the same way that we deal with other minor variances on a case-by-case situation. So, I mean, as you see in our letter, basically we're we're asking you to amend the zoning bylaw proposal to exclude shoreline residential and make it subject to a case-by-case approval process.
Okay, thank you very much, Ted. I think that's kind of what we were just talking about there, about that you need a planning act approval to do it on a. Okay, thank you for your time. Okay, any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. I think we can move on now. I would entertain a motion to rise from our public meeting and go back into our regular council meeting. Councillor Cadigan for a mover, Councillor Franzen for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, we are back in our meeting, and then we can go to item 7 of our agenda, which is business arising out of a statutory public meeting. Item 7.1. Chris Jones, I think you would like to speak to this item, please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the agenda in front of me here. Is this the?
It's on our screen if you can, I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, okay, this is Kondraki?
Yes, yes it is.
Right, so that's the, yeah, if council's supportive of the, of my recommendation, then the amendment provided as part of that file is there for your consideration. Again, with the understanding that the site plan agreement has been executed. So I would recommend it for approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Anyone have any comments? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Make a motion to receive, as well as that pending confirmation that the applicant has executed a site plan agreement that council approved zoning bylaw amendment file number 25-07.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Chris. We can move on now to item 7.2 of our agenda, which is the Del Arbor. Our planner, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that council receive the report from the planner regarding zoning bylaw amendment 25-08, and further that council support zoning bylaw amendment file number 25-08.
Okay, thank you, Del Arbor. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Braber, go ahead.
Make a motion to receive and that council support zoning bylaw amendment file number 25-08.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now we can move on to item 7.3 of our agenda. And I do believe Chris Jones, our external planner, you would like to speak to this item.
Yeah, so if we could just scroll forward to the
Sorry.
recommendation in that report. And so recommendation is that council receive my report for file 2509 and approve zoning bylaw amendment file 2509.
Okay. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
I will make that motion to receive it and to approve zoning bylaw amendment number 2509.
And I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder there. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, now we can move on to item 7.4 of our agenda. And I believe that's Chris Jones, you're up again. Additional residential units.
So, Mr. Mayor and Council, in light of the, in light of our discussions, which again, I think I think the direction, there's a couple of messages that I'm getting. Firstly, the council supportive of the option I've laid out to that would essentially allow ARUs in the SR zone subject to planning approval.
Yes.
That's the one message. The other has to do with, again, I think some further consideration or assessment of the short-term rental situation and how best to address or address that from a, if council's not supportive of seeing ARUs being utilized for accessory residential units. So it's really, it's the third paragraph that council directs staff to bring the zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment as drafted to the August 12th council meeting. So I think the direction needs to be that council directs staff to bring the ZBA and official plan amendment to the August 12th, 25 council meeting for adoption, subject to number one, integration of policy restricting ARUs in the SR zone, subject to a planning approval. And number two, further assessment or recommendation or recommendations concerning ARUs and short-term rentals.
Sounds reasonable.
Does anybody,
Dick, go ahead. As a comment.
Yeah, through the mayor. I agree with the first amendment, Chris, but I have a difficult time agreeing to the second part and supporting the motion if that becomes the motion, because I think it would be very difficult to enforce. If the main building can be used as a STR and the addition cannot.
Does anyone else share that view? Go ahead, Deputy
Yeah,
Mayor.
thanks very much. I understand what you're saying, Councilor Franson. I think we're planners to come back with the best way to address our concern that we don't support or even encourage new short-term rental properties in these areas that are adding ARUs, whether it's in the main one or the ARU. So what the solution they come back with, I think, is best left up to them. We're just tasking them with going, as I understand it, we're just tasking them to go away and come back with a recommendation on that specific issue.
Go ahead, Adele Arbor, plan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to answer Councilor Franzen's question in terms of enforcement. In our short-term rental registry, we identify on our application how many bedrooms are being used as short-term rental accommodations. And so that's documented. So with that in mind, you wouldn't be adding the additional residential unit if just the main dwelling was being used on the property as a short-term rental. So there is a mechanism to cross-reference what it's being used for. And if any additional bedrooms are being added, there's the septic approval that's required as part of the registration. So there is a mechanism for that enforcement piece. I hope that's helpful.
Go ahead, Councilor Franson.
I just don't want the impression out there is that the municipality feels that short-term rentals are negative. I don't think we should promote that they're a negative or a positive, but that they are here. And there are some positives to short-term rentals, and there's obviously some negative aspects to it.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Just a response and I'll let it go. Thank you, through you, Mayor Lamson. I don't think we're saying that. I think what we're saying is that the objective of the ARU bylaw is to increase the available housing for people in the municipality. And it's people like Ben who are younger and can't afford larger places. It's sons and daughters where their parents want to create an extra unit. It's people who want to provide a unit for caretakers. So the objective is to create more housing stock. Creating more short-term rentals does not do that. So that it's in that context that we're saying that it's not that we're saying short-term rentals are bad or good, or we don't want more or less. We're simply saying that it's not consistent with the objective of creating ARUs.
And I think that's the view of the province as well. They want an ARU to be a long-term living space for relatives or neighbors or whatever you need to put in there, but it's not a short-term rental. It's a resident. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Is anyone prepared to make some form of motion? I'm seeing none. Deputy, okay, that guy. Councilor Bradenberg, go ahead.
Hard to miss. Through you, Mayor, I think Chris was attempting to assist us with the motion, given all the conversation that we've had. Perhaps, Chris, you could maybe state that again and a little slower so we can record it and then mull it over and that sort of thing. And I just wanted to, before you do, and I think Mr. Spence's letter from the EAC, the Environmental Advisory Committee, I think that alleviates the concern with that committee if we do go that route.
Through Mayor to Councilor Braybrook, I would agree that again, the employing this alternative or this option that would see SR subject to a planning approval, I think does address some of the EAC comments. So back to the
Has your kind of stab at a motion written down here? I don't know. Unless you clerk would want to read that stab at a motion.
I'll save Chris having to say it again. It would be the council receive the report for information that council support zoning bylaw amendment 2510 and OPA 64, and further that council direct staff to bring the zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment to the August 12th council meeting for adoption, subject to integration of policy restricting ARUs in the shoreline residential zone, subject to planning approval, and further recommendations concerning ARUs and STRs.
Does that sound reasonable to you, Councilor Braybrook?
That's why it's from the patrol expert. Absolutely.
Okay, is anyone prepared to make that motion? I see Councilor Gadigan for a mover, and I would like to see a seconder. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay. Now we can move on to item 8 of our agenda, which is presentations. We have none. Item 9 is delegations, and item 9.1 is Scott McFadden and Jeff Cheshire and the Granite Ridge Estates Phase 2. Would you like to come to the, sorry, beat me there. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
He's better looking. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. I'd like to start first off by thanking staff Adele and Donna for meeting us very promptly after your last meeting so that we could get it back in time for Adele to write the report for today to have it before you. So first off, thank you. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to respectfully request that council support option 2 in your staff report 10.4.1, which is to assume the ownership of the stormwater management pond in the Granite Ridge Estates Phase 2 as public infrastructure, which is consistent with local precedent and fairness. So there's a few points I'm just going to go through. I know we've gone through this, I think, a few times now, so some of it will be a repeat. First off, this subdivision is unique and unfairly burdened. Granite Ridge Estates Phase 2 is a standard plan of subdivision. It's not a condominium. All roads and municipal services will be publicly owned and maintained. This subdivision would be the only development in the city and the county of Peterborough that has ever been required to have a common element condominium solely for a stormwater management pond. So it's important to understand we're not asking for an exception. We're simply asking to be treated like every other subdivision in the entire history of the county of Peterborough and the city of Peterborough. That's what our request is. We're not looking for an exception. So local precedent strongly supports municipal ownership. So in your last meeting, I provided a table that outlined every single stormwater management pond in both the city and the county. So there's 52. 49 of those are municipally owned. The 3 that aren't are in condominiums. And when I say condominiums, they're entirely a condominium development. So the roads, the infrastructure, the lights, everything is in the condominium. treating this stormwater management pond differently is inconsistent and it's unfair. So the pond has already proven itself over the course of the last 35 years. This pond is a former aggregate pit, which has held water since 1990. Over 35 years, it has never required dredging or any maintenance. So reality stands in stark contrast to the numbers for estimating. $15,000 to $21,000 annually for maintenance, plus $40,000 to $50,000 for dredging every 5 to 10 years. That's what's in your staff report. I'll repeat, nothing has been done since 1990 to that pond, 35 years. Most drainage from existing public areas in phase 1 is already going into that pond. So just to break it down, it's in your agenda package. You can see the map. I know it's kind of hard to read, but it outlines where all the water is flowing from. So according to that drainage analysis included in your agenda package, 71% of the total runoff volume comes from Granite Ridge phase 1, which is already fully built out. 18% comes from the Buckhorn Community Center and upstream public lands. So that leaves only 11% is actually going to come from Granite Ridge phase 2. So any expectation that adding it on and going into the pond is suddenly going to reflect these massive increases in maintenance and ongoing costs, it doesn't make any sense logically, just from that map. So safety is another issue. The pond is gentle slopes, 7-to-1 slopes, which exceeds the Ministry of the Environment and Conservation Authority guidelines. Fencing is generally discouraged in modern design. It creates hazards, maintenance issues, and does not prevent misuse. 4 public beaches exist in the township. There's no practical reason in this beautiful township, as we've just heard about its natural landscape, there's no practical reason why a stormwater management pond is going to become the hotspot for swimming. People are going to go to the beaches and enjoy your lakes. So the suggestion that that's going to cause people to suddenly change their habits and everybody's going to be trespassing across private lands to get into a stormwater management pond, I don't think is realistic. We are proposing to install lockable gates and fencing at the inlet channels. And that would provide responsible managed access for the township in order to access the pond if they do require getting to it. Final point, the condominium model, it's not feasible in this situation. A common element condominium would require a large security deposit to guarantee perpetual maintenance based on the report's inflated estimates for this pond. So imagine those numbers multiplied by perpetuity, and you can understand how large that security deposit is going to be required by the developer to put down as a security deposit. So in closing, I'm simply asking council to support option 2 in your report 10.4.1, and that is to assume the ownership of the pond in line with every other subdivision across the city and the county, approve the limited fencing approach, fencing at the inlets. This solution is both practical, fair, and consistent with modern stormwater management, best practices, and local precedent. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott. Does anyone on council have any questions? I'm seeing none. Oh, I didn't see that. Go ahead, Councillor Caddy.
To you, Mayor Lamb said, I'm struggling with this. I'm wondering, first of all, how I accept this additional risk and liability for the municipality and pass this on in perpetuity to my kids and grandkids on top of the cost, which are going to be $100,000 a year pretty soon to maintain and pay for the liability. Like, the liability will be the big expense. So really, I don't think I can support this.
Okay, so with regards to the fees, like being the hundreds of thousands a year, what What are you making
Well,
reference to?
maintenance on top of the additional cost for insurance.
And so in 35 years, there's been no maintenance, none. It's a former pit.
Well, the grass will have to be cut. I'm just looking at what the report said about fees coming forward. And I know that right now they're not that much, but they're going to be. And our insurance is going to increase considerably because of this. I think 5%, 1 to 5% was quote.
I believe it was 2, but.
I think it's 1 to 2%, but
1 to 2%.
And so you have to factor in based on the average cost of taxes that are going to be raised per home, multiplied by the number of homes that are going in there. So 1 to 2%, which translates to $5,000 per year in comparison to the $200,000 to $300,000 that will be coming in from taxes. That's how you're going to pay for it. As far as the ongoing maintenance, there hasn't been any, and there's no demonstrated reason why there will be maintenance for dredging. Those are the big costs. The costs aren't in weed eating and doing a mower. It's a former pit, it's rock. Nobody's cutting the grass. If you pull out a weed eater, maybe, but again, you'd be a long time coming up with significant funds on an annual basis for weed eating. And it will become an issue if you do a fence all the way around. But if it's just left, it'll end up being natural, or the homeowner is going to maintain it, much like the sidewalk in front of their homes.
and we're talking 39 units here, right? Lots.
39, yes.
Yeah, times $10,000 of, and if you're like that lady that was here the other day, it's $12,000. I think it's really self-funding and self-generating, that sort of thing.
Well, if I may,
Yes, go ahead.
I think it benefits the people that own these properties. Maybe they should pay for the maintenance, the upkeep.
How's there gonna be any maintenance? They own right to the water. How can any maintenance be there?
I'm just going by what was in the report that we got, that there's going to be maintenance required, grass cutting.
And I guess you can look at it the other side, where there's a sidewalk. Who cuts the boulevard? Is it the city that cuts the boulevard when you've got a sidewalk, or is it the homeowner? So expecting that a homeowner is going to call and complain and say the 3 feet by the water is long and I need it cut. I think what you're going to find, if it's going to be maintained, it's going to be maintained by the homeowner. And I think ultimately we can look at this as being specifically for those homes, but it's also for the Buckhorn Community Center. Who's managed all that water in all these years? It's going onto private property. And same thing with Granite Ridge Phase 1. It's all going onto private property. Your dry hydrant is on private property. Who should be responsible for your dry hydrant?
The owner, I suppose.
But right now it's on private property. But that's for the betterment of the entire community.
That's not uncommon. Dry hydrants on private property.
But who's responsible for the maintenance?
The owner.
The owner of the land?
Yeah.
If he doesn't want to maintain it, would he? What,
Then
without
we
this
come into an
subdivision?
agreement with the fire department to who maintains it, but
Okay, we're having a conversation here. We're supposed to
Sorry.
be going through the chair. Okay, we understand where you are there, Councillor Cadigan. You're not really. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Armstrong. Scott, thank you. I'm stuck back at the earlier part of your conversation. You were making a pretty important distinction between a subdivision and a condo corporation, and the fact that this subdivision, not a condo corporation. Would you mind just kind of reiterating what those differentiating factors are and why this is a subdivision and why that's important?
Sure. So the history of this development is such that it's been decided it's a condo and it's completing a full condominium application, and it's a subdivision and it's completing a complete subdivision application. So you've got a condo application, you've got a subdivision application. What I am saying is, in the history of Peterborough County, in the history of the city of Peterborough, this has never been asked or requested, and you have none approved. You wonder why Jeff Cheshire has taken so long to get this application through, take a long process and double it. That's what he's being asked to do. And what I'm saying is, it is not a condo. It is a subdivision. What's being asked is that stormwater management be put into a condo.
So I'm so confused. You just said there's a condo application and a subdivision. So it's both. It's both a condo corporation and a subdivision.
By planning definition right now, it is both a condo and a subdivision. What I am saying is you have no examples of that situation anywhere in the county of Peterborough or the city of Peterborough.
That's a different issue. I'm just trying to define what this animal is that we're talking about. Okay.
I think the lots are subdivision. All the lots, all 39 lots are subdivision. And the stormwater management plan and the pond and some of the areas that run into it are being proposed to being a condominium element, which doesn't make any sense if you look at it from that point of view, to me anyway. I think the whole thing should be a plan of subdivision, and Municipality of Trent Lakes put some skin in the game.
When you say proposed to be a condo, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think that's what it is. It's a condo.
Okay, it's different than proposed.
Yeah, it is. That's the application now, as it stands. That's hence they're asking for this resolution. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councilor Cadwell.
I have an additional comment. I'm wondering if the Trent Lakes tax base can support this additional cost.
There is no additional cost.
Yeah, there is no additional.
Well,
there
we
is.
have a legal opinion that there will be an additional cost, and we're taking on extra liability, which will cost us more in insurance annually. So how is there not an additional cost?
I think to address that, the assumption is being made that this subdivision proceeds. I think that's the assumption that's being made. So you're saying there's an additional cost if it takes it on, but you're not acknowledging the additional revenues that also come on. So if the municipality decides we don't want it, ultimately goes back to the developer, say, I proceed or I don't proceed. If you multiply those costs out in perpetuity to establish what that requirement for a security bond is going to be, it's quite likely going to push it over the top that it's not viable in order to continue. And if that's the case, it's flush. You get nothing. You get no taxes. You get no liability. At the end of the day, you get nothing. The alternative is you have a fully built out subdivision with the tax revenue, and you've got the increase in your insurance.
And the municipality would not be assuming the stormwater management plan for its entrances until after all the houses are built. So you're already generating revenue for multiple years, if not a couple decades. So you've made hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxation, and it's going to cost you $5,000 or $7,000 a year in 20 years. So I mean, it's financially, it makes sense to do it because of the tax revenue that will be generated. If that property gets, okay, we're not doing it, and it gets sold as vacant land, you get $4,000 a year for the property instead of $400,000 a year in taxation. Just my opinion. Okay, any other comments or questions? I am seeing none. Thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you very much, Scott, for doing your delegation. I would entertain a motion to receive that for information purposes. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover, Councillor Braybuck for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. We have received that delegation. Okay, we can move on to item 10 of our agenda. And item 10.1 is Public Works, and 10.1.1, Matt Wingetz, our Supervisor of Waste Public Works Coordinator. Can you please speak to this item?
Good afternoon, Mayor Lambshead and members of council, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just here today to present to you and answer any questions about the 2024 County Waste Management Report. This is an annual report that we receive every year, and we generally share it with council and address any questions you may have. The format this year has changed a bit as they have new staffing. And in the interest of keeping things consistent, I've just summed it up a little bit, which is the report at the beginning, and then the appendix is the full county report, which is a little more in depth than usual. I've basically just pulled out the stuff that is relevant to Trent Lakes. Nothing huge to report. We're still have the highest diversion rates in the county. We're well above the county average, which is about 53% diversion. We're at 60%. No significant changes in material type year over year, apart from construction waste, but that does vary quite a bit between over years. And there was quite a bit of, I suppose that would have been last year. And as for composition of waste, again, we are the lowest out of all of the other municipalities in the county when it comes to garbage sent to landfill in proportion to our population. We are at 40% of our waste goes to landfill, and the average for Peterborough County is 47%. We continue to be a leader within the county when it comes to diversion and waste reduction, and we're always looking for ways to knock down that 40% and hopefully work our way to zero waste one day. Any questions? Let me know.
I don't have any questions. I just have a comment about should be last. Go ahead, Councillor. Franklin.
Yeah, I have a comment and kind of a question. First of all, it's a lot for our staff to be proud of and our residents to be proud of how well they're working with recycling and that. My kind of question is about our recyclers, our food recyclers. Are we going to be making more of them available for the public?
So the idea with the food cyclers was, and they are popular, but we have actually only received, and I've been recording it, I think between 10 and 20 requests for food cyclers. So I may in the future talk to Nutrimix, which is the company, about potentially just one-off orders that we could do through us. But generally speaking, we're not doing the big program again. We think that we've reached basically potential for that program. And we're expecting that since we're going to be installing the Mollocks at the Bob Cajun site, as well as hopefully the other two sites in the near future, that will be the opportunity that people have to get rid of their organics. But
I know, like personally speaking, we already wore out one.
I know, I have to.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the same, especially the small ones when you're using it on a daily basis. They don't last more than 2 or 3 years.
I've got a number you can call, email.
I've completely wore out a black bear trying to get into my compost. Okay, good question. Go ahead, Councillor Braver.
I just wanted to share some feedback with yourself and pass it on to your staff. We had a special meeting on Saturday, and there was somebody that made a point to take a Saturday out of their day to come and compliment everybody at the transfer stations and their disposition. They said everybody at all the transfer stations were fantastic. So please pass that along to your staff, and it says something. Somebody's coming.
I absolutely will. I appreciate that.
And I intend to do that myself as well. Just drop around and say hello and thank you. We do get a lot of compliments. I'm still startled to see that 14% of our garbage is organics. And hopefully we can do better on that if we get more.
I will clarify, sorry, this is a bit misleading. This isn't the same as the audit where they took a garbage bag and pulled out and that was the percentage. The 14% is what we did end up composting essentially.
Yeah.
But yes, we do still have it's actually higher than that. So, so you're right. We do need to work on that.
Yeah, I think it was 20%, and then one of the county reports was like 27 for some.
It's scary.
It's a lot. That's tons and tons and tons of stuff that could decompose and turn into topsoil that's going into our transfer state or landfill. That's going to come to an end in the next 8 or 9 years if we don't do something. So, thank you for that report. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Motion to receive.
Motion to receive. Do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation? Just want to say thank you very much, Matt. That's a fantastic report. Greatly appreciate the information. And I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried.
Thank you.
Okay. We can move on to item 10.2 of our agenda, which is recreation facilities. We have none. 10.3 is fire and emergency services. We have none. 10.4 is building and planning, and 10.4.1 is Adele Arbor, our planner. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This report captures 2 resolutions of council. And from the last resolution, it was requested that staff meet with the proponent to get some additional information, and also to meet with our solicitor and our insurers to provide additional information to council. So the report recaps a series of information we received during the first report that was brought to council. And the additional information we received from the insurer says the greater exposure the municipality has, the more chances for claim and the higher chance for premium increases. So technically, same with house insurance, that once there's a claim, that's when your liability increases and premiums increase. So when we had our meeting on July 2nd, the proponent advised us that the 16 properties whose rear yards back onto the stormwater management pond are not being marketed as waterfront properties. So taking into consideration what our solicitor had said and the insurer, we are trying to reduce any kind of municipal liabilities. You're trying to lessen it. And we, should council choose to accept ownership, there could be some covenants that are registered on title that identify that the pond is a stormwater management pond and should not be used for recreational purposes. So then you get into enforcement. And as Mr. McFadden spoke today, he identified that those rear yards of the properties will go right to the stormwater management pond, and that they didn't want to put any kind of fencing around it. And then with maintenance, municipal maintenance, I don't know if we could put something in the subdivision agreement that says, should council need to, should council require any kind of maintenance of, say, a 5-meter strip around the pond, that we're able to do that. I don't know if that's possible or not, and whether that's required, or will everybody maintain it right to the pond area. But certainly to lessen any kind of municipal liability, staff would be suggesting that it not be used for any kind of recreational purposes. It's a stormwater management pond, and that's what its primary purpose is. Also, the property owner has indicated that they would be agreeable to add language in sales agreement advising that the pond is a stormwater management pond and that it won't be used for recreational purposes. So having said all this in my report, the recommendations is that council receive the report from the planner regarding Granite Ridge Estates Phase 2, council resolution implications of the assumption of the stormwater management pond, and further that council considers 2 options. Option 1 is that council maintain its position regarding the proposed draft plan of condominium and condominium agreement intended to address the private management and maintenance of the stormwater management pond, or alternatively, option 2, that council support the ownership of the stormwater management pond and channels by the municipality, and further that council directs staff to incorporate new draft plan conditions in the subdivision agreement restricting access to the stormwater management pond by the public and surrounding property owners, and that access is to be restricted with a gate or granite boulder at inlet channel points along roadways, of which the costs are to be borne by the applicant, and further that council directs staff to work with the insurer and solicitor to lessen municipal liability regarding ownership of the stormwater management pond, such as restricting access, covenants, registration on title, signage, etc. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have, and other staff are available as well.
Thank you very much, Adele Harbour. Does council have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Braver.
Thanks very much, Adele. As far as the insurance, what was the estimate again? Was it 1 point something to 2%?
Through Mr. Mayor, the insurance was at 1 to 2%. But in the report, it talks about the premium would increase between $5,411 to roughly just under 11,000 annually.
That's pre, if I may.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
That's pre-consultation to try to get the premium down with the insurance company.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's my understanding that would be the premium increase taking on the ownership of the stormwater management fund.
That's
Maybe
correct.
Donna would.
Yes. Through you, that would be correct. We would definitely have discussions if there are further suggestions or directions as far as risk goes to lessen that. We could have some further conversation, but that is the quote that was provided by the insurer for the addition of the pond.
Great. Another question.
Yeah, go ahead, one more.
Now, as far as the, you mentioned different things that you could do with the insurance and that sort of thing, and in consultation with the owner. Now, as far as maintenance that you'd mentioned, if the municipality had to get on to one of these 39 properties to do maintenance, you were asking basically like a right of way type thing, or not a right of way.
Through Mr. Mayor, an easement of some sort.
Yes, thank you.
But I'm not sure that at this point, if something like that would be necessary, but in case there was a requirement for us to do that, it would allow us to do it. I just don't know if legally we can do it,
Right.
especially when they're properties. It's no different than if you've got a swale in the back of your property. In an urban subdivision plan, there's often swales, and those swales are in an easement that allows the municipality to go in and do any kind of repairs or clearing, etc., and they're not to be filled in by property owners. So there are certain covenants on title, and that kind of gives you the direction of what you can and can't do legally.
Thank you, Bill. One last comment.
Yep, go ahead.
So as far as liability, I look at it as you're going to have 39 properties there. At minimum, there's going to be a couple per property. So there's 78 people that are going to back on, sort of surround that pond. And so you'll have 78 eyeballs basically keeping an eye on the stormwater. They're going to know the rules and the regulations. And it comes back to what you had mentioned, Del, there may be an enforcement type component to this. So we have 4, as Mr. McFadden alluded to, we have 4 public beaches. I don't know what the insurance premiums are for that, and if we've had any claims, I don't know.
So through you, I'm not aware of claims. I wouldn't, off the top of my head, know the premiums
Yeah, I
associated with those. Yep. I could find it for sure.
Go ahead, Adele, I think you had a comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the only difference is the municipality doesn't own that water. In this case, we're owning the stormwater management pond. So there is a difference between those scenarios.
Any other comments? I guess my comment is we have to remember that we don't take over the stormwater management plan until the subdivision is complete. So you've generated an enormous amount of tax in revenue before we take over the stormwater management plan in any way. So, lot number 1, when the house is built, more than pays for the increase in liability tax and the insurance. It's a way to try to make things like this move forward, because this has been a long time coming to any fruition. And it's a substantial development in the municipality of Trent Lakes and in the village, the hamlet of Buckhorns. I think municipalities all over this province put some skin in the game, and I think this is our opportunity to do that. Councillor Francis, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion at this time. Sure. That council will receive the report from the planner regarding Granite Ridge Phase 2. And I'd like to support option 2.
Okay. I'm not looking for a seconder. I'm going to second that motion myself, which is my right to do so. Any further conversation about the motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Sure. Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Do we have an estimate of what this is going to cost the municipality per year if we take on this?
I think we have guesses, but we don't have very little. It sits there right now. It's been sitting there for 35 years and nothing's been done to it. I accidentally fell into it twice, but I'm only kidding. It was on purpose. And I won't do that anymore, I promise. Yeah, I mean, the cost is very little, I'm sure of it. I mean, it's a granite surrounds the pond. Granite's in the bottom of the pond. Everything's been excavated out of the pond. And it exists now as a stormwater management plan for both the property across the road. I think all that water runs down in there from Buckhorn Public School, the Buckhorn Community Center, Granite Ridge Phase 1, a bit more to the east. So it is a stormwater management pond right now that's working very well and has never been dredged out. It's never had maintenance. So I think that the cost of maintaining it is going to be very little. If that helps answer your question at all.
May we ask?
Sure.
So,
Who would you like to answer that?
yeah. So I can start. Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
through you. So there is a section of the report with estimated costs annually, and that would be based on the additional insurance quote and some feedback that through Public Works, I believe, the cost that would be anticipated annually, and that would include any recreation costs for cutting grass, like that type of thing. And then the 5 to 10 year dredging that we would anticipate would need to happen. So I don't know if Evan, if you're able to speak a little bit to that.
Thank you through you, Mayor Lamb, to Councillor Cadigan. Yeah, so absolutely. So there's comments received today that, oh, it hasn't been maintained for a number of years. However, there has not been developed lots around the pond for a number of years. So as you add in topsoil and as you complete construction work around that area, that will lead to sediment entering that pond, which will result in a need to ensure that there's that capacity within the pond. So yes, you're not sure how much work will need to be done. However, there will be work needed to be done at some point as the sediment sort of filters through. If it's, designed as a stormwater management pond, which their engineers have recommended that it is, that's what a stormwater management pond function does, is it's a filtration for sediment to ensure that the sediment does not enter the lake body. So as you continue to develop in that area, put topsoil, add in, various sand, and as you're maintaining the public roads with winter sand, that's going to enter the ditches, which is then entering the pond, which is going to result in filling up the pond with sediment. So there will be at some point a requirement of the dredging, as well as on the reference to grass cutting, as well as the option of, if there was fencing or something there to protect the municipality further. As we speak with our solicitor, if that is a recommendation, that would also be a maintenance factor as well. So that's specific to that question.
Can I answer your question, Councillor Cadigan?
Well, ballpark figure is what I was looking for.
I think there's some numbers in there, but
Through you, Mayor Lamb, the ballpark figure would be on that. You're looking at renting an excavator. It depends on time and material. Obviously, cost of labor has continually increased, so that's something that will continue to increase. So we do have smaller excavators that we could do some cleanup around the edges. However, when you're dredging a pond, you need a much larger excavator that would cost an additional. So that was sort of ballpark just from experience that I have from previous municipalities. So that's sort of, you work with what you have, right? So
thank you.
Just to reiterate for the third time, by the time you take over any management of this pond, you're going to have generated, in my rough calculations, about $500,000 in tax revenue before you've even started to do any maintenance on this pond. Because their houses have to all be built and completed. The fences and the locks and the gates all have to be put on before the municipality will ever take over any liability towards this pond. And it's just my, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. I should speak before we take the vote. I'm not in favor of municipality assuming responsibility for this. It is a liability. It's an unknown liability, frankly. And the beneficiaries are the people that are in that subdivision, some of the BCC, which I was not aware of. But the beneficiaries of this are the people that live in that subdivision, not the general tax base. And we're shifting the financial responsibility, which may or may not be much, to the entire tax base. I know that it may be out of step with the county, but this is a one-off for us. And we need to look at it from our perspective and see what works for us. And in fact, if we do, it will serve as a precedent for any development going forward. I know each case is unique, but the reality is if somebody wants to develop and create a pond, they will use this as a reference point and make that as part of their case. So I'm not supportive of this.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Does anyone else have any comments before I call for the vote? I will call for the vote. Oh, I can't call for the vote. You wanted a recording. Go ahead. Our clerk, as a clerk, please call the vote.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, are you in favor?
No.
Councillor Braybrook?
Yes.
Councillor Cadigan?
No.
Councillor Franzen?
Yes.
Mayor Lansdowne?
I love being the deciding vote. Yes, I'm in favor of this.
That's carried.
Okay, that is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we can move on now to 10.5 of our agenda, which is finance. 10.5.1, Donna Taggart, our CEO Treasurer, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yes, thank you, and through you. So staff at the Buckhorn Regional Health Center have asked for a top-up of $3,000 to be taken from their blood lab reserve for the continued work of the lab technician. So as a reminder, blood lab services are only available to rostered patients at that center. So funds in that reserve are from donations, and after the $3,000 transfer, the balance is just over $24,000 or just under $25,000. So therefore, the request today is that council receive the report and that council directs the transfer of $3,000 from the Buckhorn Regional Health Center Blood Lab Reserve for the continued work of the lab technician. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donna. Anyone have any comments or questions or is prepared to make a motion? Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a comment through you, Mayor. Donna, is there any more money coming into that reserve? When that reserve is depleted, will it be depleted?
So thank you, and through you. There are annual pretty generous donations to that reserve. So
Okay.
yes, there's more than the last time that they asked for money to top up to pay the blood lab technician was a year ago. So they're only utilizing at this time around $3,000 a year. So there's more than enough through you to continue services at, into the foreseeable future.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, is that Councillor Cadigan? Go ahead.
Motion to receive the report and direct staff to transfer $3,000 from Buckhorn Regional Health Center Blood Lab Reserve for continued work of the lab technician.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any further conversation about the item? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 10.6. Thank you very much, Donna Taggart. Of our agenda, which is administration, we have none. 10.7 is corporate services. 10.7.1, Bianca Dragicevic, our deputy clerk, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Lansdowne, before council are the expenses received for the month of June and for the remainder of May for council's approval and authorization. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone have any comments or questions or is prepared to make a motion? Councillor Braybrook, go ahead.
Motion to receive and approve.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? And Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any further conversation? I don't want to say what I have to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. My apologies once again. Now I will call for the vote. All in favor? Motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 11 of our agenda, which is notices of motion. Does anyone have a notice of motion? Seeing none, we can move on to item 12 of our agenda, which is correspondence for information. Would anyone like to speak to any of these items, or we can receive all three at one motion? Discretion of council.
Motion to receive.
All three?
All three.
Okay. Do I have a second for that motion? Councillor Braybrook?
Actually, I wanted to pull out first one, I believe. 12.1.
Okay. Would you like to amend your motion to take a second too?
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I just wanted to make a motion to refer
Would you like to, are you still seconding the motion to receive two?
Yes.
Okay, so I will, any further conversation about the second two? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, now, Councillor Braybrick, you would like to speak about 10.1. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
I'd just like to make a motion to refer to the Environmental Advisory Committee for information.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a second. Any conversation about the item? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay. We can move on now to item 13 of our agenda, which is correspondence for action. Item 13.1 is City of Guelph Special Economic Zones Act. Would you like to speak to that item or is prepared to make a motion? Councillor Fernandez?
I think we've dealt with that adequately when we had the notice of motion from Deputy Mayor Armstrong, so I think that could be received.
Okay, you're making a motion to receive it?
I'll receive that.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 13.2, which is the County of Prince Edward. Anyone like to speak to that motion? Go ahead.
I'd like to speak to that motion. I agree with them. I don't think that being disabled means that you have to live in poverty. And I think that we should take care of our people that have disabilities. With the cost of rent and the cost of food, it's very difficult for them even to maintain any service at all.
Are you making that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Okay.
To support that.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation about that motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 13.3 of the agenda, which is Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. I think Donna Taggart, you might want to speak to this item. Please.
Yes, thank you, and through you. So at the June 17th regular meeting, council supported staff applying for funding under the Municipal Disaster Recovery Assistance Program for costs incurred as a result of the ice storm March 28 and March 29. So although this funding contained cost thresholds in order to qualify, which was 3% of the municipality's own purpose tax levy from the most recent financial information return, which for Trent Lakes would have been $328,000. The Premier committed to waiving this requirement after touring the area. So based on the removal of the cost threshold, the province has now switched the program, requiring an updated resolution of support from council. And thank you, Bianca. Jesse. So the funding is now available through the Municipal Ice Storm Assistance Program. And the only difference between that and the original program is the removal of the cost threshold. So I did have a look today just to let you know, spending at this time is sitting at $475,000 for that storm. Under the program, if the municipality is eligible, there would be $385,650 potentially received for funding. So we're really hopeful that happens. And that would assist in covering the costs of the unplanned ice storm, obviously. So the updated resolution is there for you. And we're looking for support today for that resolution, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Donna. How many I guess we'll take a motion first. Anyone prepared to make a motion? It's on the screen. Councillor Braybrick, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to receive, and that the corporation municipality Trent Lakes has eligible cost directly linked to the ice storm, and council. Do you want me to read the whole thing or just as laid out? As laid out.
As recommended.
As recommended, yes. Thank you.
Do I have a second? Oh,
No.
I Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation? I think this is a pretty decent way to get a little bit of our funding back, and I don't think it relates to the physical and mental demands that we put on our staff. So this is a bit of money, but it doesn't really help what we went through and our residents. So I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 13.4 of our agenda, which is the town of Brantford and West Gwillimbury. Anyone like to speak to that item? Anyone like to make a motion? Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Motion to receive.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor, Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any further conversation about the motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now, we can move on to item 14 of the agenda, which is bylaws. Item 14.1 is zoning bylaw amendment file 2507 for Kondraki. Is prepared to make a motion or need more information? Just earlier in our meeting. Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councillor Cadigan. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. And we can move on to 14.2, which is zoning bylaw amendment 2508. Would anyone like to speak to that item or prepared to make a motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Braybrock for a seconder. Any further conversation about the item? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 14.3 of the agenda, which is zoning bylaw amendment 2509. We spoke to earlier in our agenda. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any further conversation about the item? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 15 of the agenda, which is announcement. Does anyone have any announcements to make? Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Through your mayor, there is a carnival in Cavendish coming up on the 19th, Saturday, July 19th. Family friendly, events for kids, baseball, pickleball tournament perhaps. Anyways, bring your families and have fun.
Thank you, Councillor Cadigan. That will be this Saturday.
Yes.
Yikes. So not ready. Okay, any other announcements? Seeing none, we can move on to item 16 of our agenda, which is closed meeting. I would entertain a motion to go into closed. Councillor Braybrook for a mover, Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. We are going into close under the authority of the Ontario Municipal Act, section 239.2 to discuss C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, lease negotiations, and K, that position, plan, procurement, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, lease negotiations. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are in close. Okay, item 16.2 of our agenda, we can rise from closed. I would entertain a motion to rise from closed, go back into our regular meeting. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover, Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 17 of our agenda, which is business arising from the closed meeting. Item 17.1 is the adoption of the minutes from June 17th, 2025 and July the 2nd of 2025. I would entertain a motion for same.
Approve as amended.
Approved as amended. Thank you very much. That's a motion from Deputy Mayor Armstrong, Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Minutes are adopted as amended. And we can move on to item 18 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming bylaw. Item 18.1 is the confirming bylaw. Entertain a motion. Councillor Cadigan for a mover. Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. And we can move on to item 19 of our agenda, which is the motion to adjourn. I would entertain that motion. Councillor Franzen for a mover. Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, staff. Thank you, council. Thank you, everyone who attended.